Guys, welcome back to another video in this series. Today, or not this series, rather this channel. Today we're actually going to be taking a look at something that I haven't really worked on for a couple of months, but I'm going to tell you a little story. But before that, just remember that we have our portfolio review coming tomorrow and on Sunday. We've had few submissions this month. I've seen this sort of pattern where we have a very small month and then a very big month. So last month on September, there were like 30 submissions. Right now, we're really low on submissions. So I'm still going to cover them. Don't worry. You're going to get your time and everything. So if you want to submit, this is a perfect chance to get a little bit more time that you might normally get because, as I mentioned, we have fewer submissions today or in this at this time. So this past weekend, I went with my wife to the FIL, which is the Feria Internacional del Libro, International Book Fair or event, or whatever you want to call it. It's a very big event that it happens in Monterrey, which is a big city here in New Mexico. And it's books, right? Like a lot of publishing houses, independent authors. So like everyone goes there and publishes their books. Or not publishes, just sells their books, right? I got myself the Brandon Sanderson Lightbringer trilogy, like the first 3 books. I've been reading his Mistborn trilogy this past couple of weeks, and I really like his writing style. I recommend him. And yeah, so that's what I got for myself. But that's not the main point of the whole thing. The main point is that when we were like going through the halls and everything, there was a place. Let me jump here. There we go. There was a place that had puzzles, right? Like just like traditional like jigsaw puzzles. And the interesting thing about those is some of them were really pretty and stuff. But I saw one, and I saw it. And I'm gonna see if I can find a similar one. That was made out of colors, something like it was just like an abstract thing like this, but they have like a lot of cubes, and they were like 3D cubes, like move in different directions and stuff. And I saw it, and I was like, that seems like something we could do in 3D, and it should be fairly easy to do. And voila, I did it. So it's not a difficult process, but I want to show you how to do this because it's one of those things that can be very easy to do. And I'm going to show you a couple of extra things that we can do here in 3D that, of course, you can't do on a jigsaw puzzle. So imagine this thing, but with all of the rainbow colors. Right now, I just grabbed a different image, just like blue and the pink one, blue and orange one. And I'm going to show you, we're using Mesh for this one. So if you've never used Mesh before, this is a great way to understand how this happens. So just a quick overview. I'm not going to cover, it's going to be a fast video. I'm not going to cover the light setup. It's just a basic HDRI. Our camera is straight pointing down to the floor. And I'm going to rebuild the whole Mesh thing, okay? So as you can see, I have my Mesh network right here. I'm literally just going to delete it. So I'm just going to go here. I'm just going to delete everything right here. Delete the Mesh network. There we go. So we're back to square one, literally. So the way this works is, again, very simple. Let's delete everything. There we go. So we start with a cube, or with the shape that we want to like multiply everywhere, right? In this case, since I wanted to do the sort of a puzzle thing, I actually went with a cube, which I thought was a cool shape. So I created a cube, just a 1x1 cube. I extruded it, or just scaled it in the Z-axis to get this sort of effect. And then now that we have this, we need to use Mesh. Mesh is it's one of the instancing tools that we have here inside of Maya. It's really good for like motion graphic things. I'm not a motion graphics guy. I don't do a lot of that stuff, but it's cool. It's fun, and you can create some very interesting effects. Nowadays, though, Mesh has been kind of replaced with Bifrost. The Bifrost network works in a very similar fashion to how the geometry nodes work inside of Blender. So Maya has been pouring more resources into the Bifrost thing than into Mesh, but Mesh is still a really powerful plugin. It is a plugin, so you do need to enable it here in Setting Preferences, Plugin Manager, and look for Mesh. If you look for this one, it's going to be right there. And before we continue, I just want to remind you guys that if you have not learned about Maya, if you want to learn about Maya, if you want to learn a little bit about animation and stuff, we do have courses, and you can check them out for free with Skillshare.
Hey guys, Abraham here. I just want to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So, what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below.
There we go. So I'm going to call this cube right here original mesh. So we know that this is the original cube because when I hit this little button up here, which is the mesh network, it will create a mesh network. And as you can see, the original mesh is now hidden. And the mesh one repo mesh, which is this one right here, repro mesh, is the one that we're actually seeing. So a lot of people think that they are still seeing the original one. It's not. The original one is back here. One of the cool things about the original one is that if you change the original one, all of the instance ones, because these are instance, will be adapted as well. So technically, I could go in, like bevel stuff, like do a lot of different things. I'm going to show you. You can just literally go. I'm not even seeing the original mesh, but if I bevel it, you're going to see how all of the other ones change as well. So let's do a nice little like smooth bevel so we have a little bit of a highlight every on this repro mesh. Now, the way mesh works, and that's one of the reasons why I really like it, is we have this thing called, go back there a little bit. There we go. We have this thing called this button right here, which is the mesh editor, where we like build upon layers and layers of functions or changes that we want to do to our elements. Right now, we have this one, the mesh one distribute, which is a node that, as the name implies, distributes the objects throughout a specific pattern. Right now, this is a linear pattern, and we have 10 points, but I can have 10,000. There we go, 10,000 points in just 20 units of distance. I can change this distance. I know 10,000 is way too much, of course, but I just want to get the point across that you can have as many or as few elements as you want. Now, let's go back to 10. The interesting thing about this is, again, since they're instances, it is, performance-wise, it's not as heavy as having like actual geometries, because all of these guys are just copies of the previous one. So there's a lot of distribution types. In this case, we're going to use the grid distribution, which, as you can see, will get us a grid. Right now, we have 3 units on X and Z. You know, left and front and left and right. And we have 5 units of distance between all of them. So I'm going to go with 1,000. So I'm going to go here in the grid. I'm going to say 100 on X and 100 on Z. And of course, we need at least 100 units on X and 100 units on Z. And as you can see, we're going to get this, which is just a box of 1,000, well, not 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. I suck at math. So it's a really big box of cubes right here that we have placed on our stuff. Now what we can do is we can play around with the parameters using other nodes over here. So the mesh network has all of these nodes, and they all do different things. Some of them are for animation. Some of them are for construction, if you wish. And in this case, we're going to use the random transform. So I'm going to right click all the way here to random. Where is it? Random. There we go. So I add a random node to the guy right here. And as you can see, we have the mesh distribute. We should see the random node. Where is it? That's really weird. Not sure what it is, but there we go. We have the random node. And as you can see, what the random does right now is it modifies the units, the X, Y, and Z units of the element. So now the cubes are overlapping. If this is what you want, if you want to go for the super abstract shapes, that's fine. But in this case, I just want to change the Y axis on the cubes. So some of the cubes are going to be pushing up. Some of the cubes are going to be pushing down. And I can change, of course, the amount or the intensity of the position there on Y. It stops at 10, as you can see right there, but I'm completely free to go to like 50 or something, and you're going to see this very, very interesting thing as well. Which, by the way, we could take this and bake it into like a plane and get like a sort of like, it's not a tileable texture, but we can get some sort of like texture that might look good for other things. So don't think that Mesh is only good for motion graphics. I've seen people model things with Mesh and create very, very interesting things. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We can of course scale this. So some of the cubes could be like bigger or smaller. Right now we do have absolute scale turn on. We can turn on uniform scale so that they all either change in one direction or not, depending again on what the type of construction that you want. I think it might be fun to add just a little bit of overlap there. So let's say like a 0.1, so 10%. Some of them are going to be 10% bigger, and some of them are going to be 10% smaller, which shouldn't really break the whole. Now, one of the really cool things that we have with all of this generators or elements is that we can actually go down here and we can change the strength, of course, which is how much of this element we want to have. And we can animate this. If you guys are familiar with animation inside of Maya, anytime you see a slider that's something that you can animate. So you just right click and set a key and then move it around, and you can have like a logo like moving. Again, it's crazy stuff out there that you can do with mesh. So once we have that, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go here to fall off object. I'm going to right click and I'm going to create an object. This creates a sphere. And as you can see, the sphere is the only area where this random effect is being applied. The cool thing about that sphere is that we can actually scale the sphere. If we select here, we can show an outliner. We can grab that shape and we can technically scale that. It seems like my scale broke. Let me reset that. Oh, that's really weird. Okay, either that or it's already really big. We can change the inner zone, which is how like the fall off of the element right here. And if we go back to the other to the random one right here, we can actually change the where is it? There we go. We can change like the value right here as well. Technically, we should be able to scale it. I'm not sure why. Was having a hard time. Normally, you are like it's a lot easier to scale. I'm not sure if it's because of the uniform. Absolute scale can't be that thing. Oh, that's really weird. But yeah, this thing right here, we can like modify it. I'm gonna go to the options. You can see that's the scale. It's moving very, very small. I'm guessing it's negative scale. No, that's really weird. I'm just gonna play like 100 here, or like 80, so that we have an interesting follow. So you can change, as you can see, the scale of the object right there. There we go. Like 50 seems good. Now we can go again to the options right here, and we can change how this like linearly blends. We can change the inner zone. I'm gonna blend the inner zone even more, so we have this very nice fall off. And then if we go back to the random option right here, we can also change the strength to something like a 10. Again, very, very extreme. And you can see how this thing creates this very nice dome for our composition. So I'm going to go for something like this. I think that one, this thing right here looks interesting. Let's take a look at our camera. We have a camera floating, or we had a camera. Let's create a new one. I'm going to say rendering camera. I'm not going to jump into it just yet. I'm just going to rotate this and minus 90 degrees so that it's facing down. Panels, look to selected, and now I can find like a nice view. So I think something like this, we see a little bit of the flat areas, should be more than enough. So I'm gonna save this real quick because I haven't saved. I'm gonna call this mesh. There we go. And if we were to render right now, if I just hit render, we're gonna see this, which is weird because that's not what we have right here. Let's go again, Arnold render. We should see the distribution. There we go. So we have this sort of like sphere looking thing, and it's like coming towards us. And we have this very nice like global illumination thanks to the what's the word, to our HDRI. Now you guys know me, I always like to have some sort of like direct light, so we have like more interesting shadows. So I'm gonna add a light right here, another area light, big area light, because I want soft shadows coming from like a 45-degree angle. And let's go for like 10 exposure. See how that looks. Maybe 10 is a little bit too little. Let's try more. 50. 50 is, of course, way too much. That's an interesting look, but that's way too much. Let's go 18. 18 looks good. 17 looks even better. 15. 15 is fine. I think 15 is a nice color. We can, of course, use color temperature if you want to like make this thing cooler or warmer. And as you can see, that lets us appreciate the way like forms are moving in a better way. So there we go. Our mesh network is working. Now, again, one of the cool things about this thing right here is you can actually move it. So you can actually animate this thing going through the object and changing it. You can move it to the side, and it's going to give you like a different appearance. So something like that might not be a bad look. Like maybe, yeah, I like that. So maybe we'll have this sort of like half dome like coming down towards us, right? And again, it looks interesting. Now, on top of this is one of the beauties about a mesh. On top of this, we can add another random. We can say, hey, you know what? We want another random node, but this one's going to be like a really low strength. So that's going to break up everything. And maybe, again, we just want like X and Y. And we can play around. And that way, it's also going to break down the lower parts of the elements. And these two nodes, they're like working together to create an interesting effect. Again, if I were to render this real quick, you're going to see this is an interesting composition. If you want to create your own wallpapers in a fast way, this is a great way to do it. I do think the first random, it's a little bit too strong. So I'm going to lower it a little bit more because the shadows were a little bit too deep right there. There we go. This looks way, way better. So the next step, how do we map a texture to this object right here? Like, what would be the way to do it? Well, first, we need to get a texture. And as I was mentioning, you can get any texture that you want. You can get like a logo again, or you can get like some crazy textures here. I just went for like, let's go for like a blue gradient background. The better resolution, well, the best, or the, let's go abstract blue colors. So we have like this sort of like swirly stuff thingies going on. Like this fractals look really good. It could be like an image from your favorite show. This one looks very nice. This one looks interesting. It has a watermark though. Hate that. Oh, that one's interesting. This one's actually quite nice as well. Again, fractal. See, like this sort of stuff, that's the sort of stuff that we can very easily recreate using this method I'm showing. That one's interesting. There we go. This one's pretty cool. And it seems to be high definition. If we go here, there we go. So I'm gonna save this image. I'm gonna save it on the desktop for now. No, why is it saving it in a bad format? Is there a way to download this? There we go, JPEG. Okay, so we're gonna jump into Maya. And what I need to do is I need to create a plane. This is important. I'm gonna create a plane. I'm gonna create like, or move the size of the plane so that it matches our cube, something like that. And on this guy, I'm gonna assign a new material. Let's do an Arnold AI standard surface. And let's call this blue abstract. And on the color, of course, we're gonna map in the file texture. So we'll map this guy here. We go to our downloads, and there we go. Hit open, and that's what we have. We have the very nice, interesting gradient. The red is coming from the top, which is pretty cool. I think it matches the sort of like story that we want to tell with this one. And there we go. So how do we assign this color to this guy right here? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. First of all, I'm actually going to bring this thing down so we can see the colors here. And we need to assign a color node to the whole thing. This thing, what it does is it maps a color to all of the elements, which in this case, as you can see, it's a white color. We don't want this white color to be assigned to this thing. We actually want this map right here. But in order for us to like properly get what we want, if I were to click here and bring the image again, you can see that it's not going to work. So if I just bring the file, which is like the most obvious thing to do in this case, it's not going to work as we think. Hit open, and it looks horrible. Why? Because it's still getting like the UVs from the original cube, and it's not mapping like a flat. So what we do is we click here, and we just literally drag and drop with middle mouse the plane into the UV mesh so that it inherits that UV from that plane. So it kind of like transfers the UV into the pixels that we have right here. Now, if we were to move this thing, as you can see right here, it's going to change. That's why we needed to keep this thing like really, really tight to this specific surface so that we get this very interesting effect right here. Now, if, because a lot of you might be like, well, perfect, that's great. We just render it and that's it, right? We have our final like image, and the answer, unfortunately, is no, it's not going to work. And the reason why it's not going to work is because we need to tell the repro mesh and the meshes from mesh to export that like vertex information into our material. So first of all, I'm going to create a new material here, assign new material, or actually we already had the material, right? No, okay, so I'm going to assign a new material to this guy, Arnold, AI standard surface. And what we need to do is we need to say, hey, you know the color of this surface? I don't want the color of this surface to be white. I actually want, and I don't want this to be a file because it's not going to inherit the UVs. I want you to do a different thing. So let's go to the material. I want you to use something called an Arnold utility node. Arnold AI utility. So it's called user data color. That's one right here. AI user data color. So I'm going to click that one right here. And here on the attribute, we're going to write color set. Why are we doing this? Because on the mesh node right here, you can see that we have this color set name called color set. If you have multiple mesh nodes or multiple elements or multiple color nodes, you might need to specify the name for each one of them. But we need to tell it, hey, we want you to export this information. So the information you're inheriting from this color and this plane, that information that you're generating in this part right here, you're going to export it as a vertex color so that the material itself, the AI material, the Arnold material, can bring that color into its shader. So finally, we just need to go to a couple of places. First of all, on the repro mesh, you need to make sure that on the output attributes, you have color per vertex turned on. And on the mesh itself, on the shape node, if you go to R node, you need to go down here. You also need to select export vertex color. This is one that I always forget about. And I always go back to my notes and to the reference to be like, okay, well, what was the channel that I forgot? And it's that one right there. And if you do that, now, technically, we should be able to render, and we're going to be inheriting those colors into our mesh right here. And there we go. Last things we can do to make this thing even better. Let's go to our common settings. Let's change this to a very nice full HD setup so that we have way more elements. And since this is just basic colors, we can definitely add a denoiser optics to make sure that it cleans the image when we render. And voila, we have a really nice randomized mosaic, very procedurally coolly. I think it's very coolly. It looks very cool when generated this way. And again, if you think about this, eventually we could create an animation where this thing just like goes through the whole thing, and then like a logo pops out. Like there's so many things you can do with animation and mesh. But hopefully this video was cool for you guys. Again, it's a very nice way to do it. There's a lot of clients out there that are looking for ways to present their stuff in a better way. And sometimes a simple like stylized wallpaper or background for the images that you don't have to pay for, it's a good idea. So that's it. Hope you guys like this image, and I'll see you back on the next one. Remember, this weekend we have portfolio reviews. Depending on the amount, we'll either have 1 or 2, and we'll come back next week for more 3D videos. So thank you very much, guys. I'll see you back on the next one. Bye bye.